Susan Bassey on a Free Press Friday with a full First Amendment audit at the San Jose Police Department. Before I get started on showing you this audit, I want to tell you about a court hearing that I had right before it. This is Baby Prosecutor Daniella Rich. We call her Baby because she graduated in 2012 from law school at Santa Clara University. Perhaps because she's only freshly out of law school, she might not understand the ramifications that the criminal case she is prosecuting is linked to my federal lawsuit for the Santa Clara County Sheriff Deputy breaking my hand and violating my First Amendment right in a family courthouse. Because there are no cameras allowed in my criminal case, I have to show you and tell you what happened in that case based on information that I have and photographs that I know are available. This is Eric Geffon, my judge. He was first a criminal defense attorney. I'm informed that Judge Geffon was surprised to learn that I was both a journalist and an advocate for victims. Judge Geffon clearly wasn't reading my papers because I told him that as much myself, because I know that he represented the boys in the Audrey Pot case. As a judge, I know that he has exonerated people who have been falsely imprisoned. But I also know that he probably knows of some of the more famous cases involving rape and sexual assault in our county, where I have worked for the victims and with their lawyers, and I have discovered a pattern of family law attorneys putting victims under duress and settling out cases so that they don't get sent to the district attorney, which improves his record and win rate and allows him to present to the public that he's actually protecting the public from these crimes when he is in fact not.
The court reporter today is Pam Stipik, representing Pizzotti and Jarnigan. Would the reporter please administer the oath?
Raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give and the cause now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Please begin.
Did you serve in the military?
No. No.
You were a paratrooper?
Yes.
Where?
In Vietnam. 101st.
So you did serve in Vietnam?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, but that was before college.
Before college. I thought you said you were 18 when you...
Yeah, but you can join when you're 17 with parental consent.
Okay, so you joined when you were 17?
Yes.
And how long did you serve in Vietnam?
10 months, 11 months.
After I received a copy of this deposition, I did a records request to the school where Mr. Bra claimed to have attended. They confirmed that he committed perjury and lied about his service in Vietnam for 40 years in Santa Clara County. After the Santa Clara County deputies broke my hand and seized my phone and searched it unlawfully, I was criminally prosecuted. The federal case I have against them is stayed pending the outcome of that criminal case. Santa Clara County District Attorney Jeff Rosen assigned Baby Rich to my case and told her it was a special case. I asked my criminal defense attorney at the time what that meant, and he told me that meant that if she prosecuted me, that she would get a promotion and a raise and lots of attention from the DA. Sounded a little fishy to me, so I of course did a public records request and obtained the DA's policies and procedures and specifically looked up special cases. None of that seemed to fit why they were prosecuting me for taking a photograph of police unless there was something they really wanted to hide. Now, the county employee and public information officer charged with drafting the press release on the hiring of Daniella Rich in the DA's office was Sean Webby, who happened to be subject to a restraining order after beating up on a protester during the recall campaigns of Judge Aaron Persky. Seems Sean Webby was a little favorable to Michelle Dauber's side and not what Jeff Rosen was portraying to the public. Now, I'm not saying that Daniella Rich cheated to get into Santa Clara University, an elite law school in our area. I'm just saying that she did have access, given the time period she went to school there, to a number of players in the area who were what we call inside the tent. She had access to judges that taught leadership and ethics courses, and she had access to judges who addressed police misconduct or didn't. And she had access to people inside the DA's office who prosecuted police officers or didn't. I thought it was especially noteworthy that Sean Webby took it upon himself to add Daniella Rich's background teaching track and field and softball for the Special Olympics. He made her resume look like a typical resume of somebody who was trying to pad their resume in order to get a certain kind of attention. Now, while Baby Rich was attending Santa Clara University, she probably didn't have a lot of time to focus on Maria Shriver or Sergeant Shriver and their connection to the Special Olympics. She probably didn't have a lot of time to pay attention to the Arnold Schwarzenegger Shriver divorce case and what that meant for custody cases throughout California. She also probably didn't have a lot of time to read up on federal constitutional law involving the case with Sheriff Joe Arpaio out of Arizona. That federal lawsuit was a First Amendment lawsuit brought against a sheriff for abusing his power and suppressing political opposition through investigation, arrests, and prosecution. Perhaps Baby Rich can find the time now to study up on federal law and the First Amendment. She can study up on the possibility of her being joined to a federal lawsuit where her immunity would not apply because she violated the First Amendment rights of a publisher and a producer who was not only a journalist, but who was advocating for victims, investigating sex trafficking and abuse of children, and misuse of public funds arising from the office of the district attorney, where her boss has been under investigation for the past 10 years. After Daniella Rich was unsuccessful in getting me remanded into custody, I went back to my job of investigating the police departments in the area and advocating for victims and documenting their journey. It isn't clear, since 2016, I have been documenting, observing, obtaining public records, listening to whistleblowers, and interviewing sources about how police officers treat people involved in crimes, how they treat the people being the suspects, and how they treat the victims. On this day, I was conducting a full audit. That meant I was armed with records from SB 1421. I was getting my own records as part of my immersion journalism project, and I was following a victim in attempting to report a crime and documenting how people felt when they saw armed deputies go through the lobby and discuss their trust in our police. Because I had 4 hours to kill during this audit, I was able to catch up on all your YouTube channels, and the sentencing hearing in Texas related to the female police officer who had murdered an African-American man in his apartment caught my attention, as did the engagement of the number of people commenting when they were able to actually see our criminal court and justice system at work. I was also able to catch up on some research. I went through my text messages and my documentation, and I was able to do a full audit of the San Jose Police Department. An audit that wasn't just intended to get your attention with a shooting or a bad cop at the beginning, but an audit to really tell you about what was going on, about the striking employees and union workers across the street, and the noises and the sounds that you could hear from inside the police department. In conducting my audit, I documented everything in that police department. I documented how police officers interacted with people. I documented how they treated you at the window, and I found this officer especially kind.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Oh, you said you're not. There you go.
Thank you.
Yep.
With 4 hours to spend in the police lobby, I had ample opportunity to document everything going on in that lobby. A number of people spoke candidly to me, but wanted to be off record, and so I turned off my recorder to talk to them about their experiences with the police. One man told me he was there to support a woman who had burned down thousands of acres of property and spent 2 years in jail in order to defend herself from a child molestation case. I picked up the literature and reviewed it and found that the San Jose Police Department is doing a good job, which has been my experience online as well, in getting records and information to the public. I documented all of the information they had in the lobby, and I did find that they should be putting more of this information online, and I found that the wait time for people to file a report or to get records, which I had to do myself, related to calls for service and other information was excessively long. It took a total of 4 hours to get this information. It seems that in the middle of Silicon Valley, we should be able to automate this process and make it easier for people and less burdensome than spending 4 hours. When I got back home, I had the opportunity to revisit the trial in Texas involving a former police officer who was on trial for murder. The images reminded me of what I had seen in 1996 during the O.J. Simpson trial. There were issues of police misconduct, issues of race, issues of gender bias, issues of prosecutorial misconduct, and a zealous representation from the criminal defense attorneys. I watched lawyers who knew they would be judged because cameras were allowed in the courtroom. All the world's attention was on this trial. It encompassed so many modern issues related to a woman police officer in Texas, where a jury would decide her fate and how long of a sentence she would serve. But it was what I heard Amber say next that I found the most remarkable. See if you catch it.
Where were you born and raised?
In Arlington, Texas.
And do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have one brother and one sister.
Okay. Who's the oldest?
My sister, Allie.
Your sister Allie?
Allie,
How much older is that?
she's 38.
38?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How about your brother? How much older is he?
He's 2 years older than I am.
What's his name?
David.
What's he do for a living?
He's in the Navy.
How about your sister?
She works at a restaurant.
So you were the youngest.
Yes, sir.
When you grew up, were your parents living together?
No, they were not.
Okay. When you were, as a small child, were they living together for some time?
Yes, they did for a little bit.
What time did they separate?
About when I was 5 years old.
It wasn't just two mothers watching that hearing that week. It was all mothers. Mothers who worry about their sons and their daughters, whether they choose to be police officers or whether they have to fight in family court for their children. Mothers who are married, mothers who are not, fathers who support mothers, and those who know the tragedy that can occur when our family courts and our law enforcement agencies get it wrong. But it was the testimony of the murdered victim's brother that made me realize that that hearing showed us how things can work when the public is watching and when the jury has an opportunity to see everything.
I don't know if this is possible, but can I give her a hug, please? Please? Yes.
We may never know if it was because there were cameras in the courtroom that the judge said yes, but we do know that because there were cameras in the courtroom that we all got to see this moment. This was a moment where there was forgiveness, redemption, and justice because there were cameras in the courtroom.
We, the jury, find unanimously that the defendant did not cause the death of Botham John while under the immediate influence of sudden passion arising from an adequate cause, and assess the defendant's punishment at 10 years imprisonment in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
So as Amber had her day in court, I was preparing for mine. And on November 15th, 2019, my criminal defense attorney will file a motion to disqualify the entire district attorney's office in Santa Clara County, including Jeff Rosen, for selective and malicious prosecution. So on November 15th, with a little help from my friends, hopefully we will be able to bring you the events in my courtroom so that you can see what's happening for yourself. And you can see what it looks like when a district attorney recklessly and maliciously prosecutes a journalist who is investigating his office. Investigating his office for public corruption and for failing victims of crimes who are the most vulnerable in our society. And I assure you, by the time we get done with that hearing, if Judge Geffon had any questions about my ability to be an investigative reporter and an advocate for crime victims at the same time, he won't have any doubts when we get done with that hearing.